Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Join the Podcast Mogul Phil Better as he interviews successful entrepreneurs that make their living in the digital world. Now, let's join your host, Phil Better, and his special guest today on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. I am, of course, your host with the most, Phil Better. And today I'm excited because our guest is a visionary. They've been an entrepreneur since childhood, started their first business at 24, where they lead and inspire individuals, groups, and businesses to reach their highest potential. They have worked with individuals and entrepreneurs from all over the world, dug deep in their companies and in their hearts to pull out the authentic leadership skills to make a greater impact and income. Please put your hands together for Katie Edwards Corbin. Katie, thank you so much for being here. Ooh.
Did it freeze?
Yeah, it looks up. No, you're back.
Okay. Thanks for having me, Phil. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here because you have been in the game for somewhat of since childhood. So you have a very vast knowledge of entrepreneurship. So how about you give us a quick overview of who you are and what you do so that my audience can understand?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So I have been an entrepreneur pretty much since I was a kid. I mean, I had little things I would sell or little companies that I'd start. I didn't officially become an entrepreneur like legally until I was 24. And I was sort of thrown into entrepreneurship going into alternative medicine. And I got out at 24 and I really had, I want to say I had a choice, but I almost had like no choice to start my medicine. Because at that time, alternative medicine 14 years ago wasn't really accepted or almost like deemed as acceptable in Western culture. So I actually had to start my own practice. And that's really where I sort of out of the gate got an understanding of what entrepreneurship took, and I've been doing it ever since.
So you've never really done the 9-to-5 world. You've always been kind of an entrepreneur in yourself. That's amazing. I love that.
Yes.
And so the real crux, the reason why you jumped in is because there was no businesses in the field that you were going into, correct?
Correct. Yep. There was very small amounts of jobs out there. You'd have to move to a really big city, and that was the only option, or to almost be on it like a time. When I graduated, it was still sort of voodoo medicine in the United States. And I really had to figure out not only how to become an entrepreneur, but how to become an entrepreneur in something nobody knew anything about, or maybe even didn't know they wanted. So it was sort of a challenge at the beginning for me to navigate the entrepreneurship, but also navigate a sort of unknown field too as well. So it was a very interesting start.
No, it is like you're already becoming an entrepreneur on itself in a regular, like doing a social media management company or building a law firm, or there's already like the blueprints pretty much created because there's people beforehand, but now you're creating the blueprint for future generations. So you're creating a double blueprint in essence. What were some of the challenges you faced?
Yeah, so I would say many challenges. The challenge of just, what do I do? How do I get clients? Like a lot of entrepreneurs do. They think they go out and everybody knows what you do, or they all want to work with you. So I definitely face that challenge, like a lot of entrepreneurs do as well. But I also face a challenge of communicating a product or a service to people that weren't really sure of it. And also like they didn't know what it did. So it was sort of a double-edged sword for me when I got out there, and I had to communicate my product effectively and my service effectively to people. So I could be like, I can help you with this, or I can help you with that. That was a big issue when I first began. And I now I'm sort of actually grateful that I had to do that, because it actually strengthened a lot of my marketing skills made me get out there in different ways that maybe not a normal entrepreneur would have to. And it made me almost have an inner cultivation of myself, because it's one thing if you're selling, something that everybody needs, like a house, like, oh, here's your house, you want it. And why it was better than, maybe modern medicine in a certain aspect. So it challenged me in actually both directions.
I love that. And then you're going from this holistic alternative medicine side. How did you get into where you are today? Like, what was that journey looking like? Because you're over here where you're helping people in a different way, but now you're helping individuals get a greater impact and a greater income. How did that happen? How did you go from medicine to greater impact and greater income?
Yes, it's actually an interesting journey, because the way I actually excelled into helping people with businesses was I did really well, and actually colleagues and people in alternative medicine and actually regular medicine started to reach out to me and be like, what are you doing? I need help in this aspect, or I need help in this area. And helping solopreneurs or entrepreneurs really make more impact and more money was people actually asking me for help. So that was like the signal for me, like, oh, I guess I'm doing something right. If I was successful in this field, and then people started to ask me. That's actually how I got my first client, in almost like seemingly completely different realm, but it for me, it was like my challenges and what I faced actually prepared me for this, almost like what I consider like almost a next level of entrepreneurship for my own evolution of myself and what I was really called to help people with.
I like that. I like how you started one thing, solved a problem for yourself, which eventually led you to being able to help other people solve that same problem they had, because you were coming from the alternative medicine and even everyday medicine. They have the same issues. It's just there's more accepted, if you will. So it's I love how there was that link there, that it was still in your niche, but it was just the next level up from your niche. What has been one of your I want to say your favorite moment, because obviously having asked this question at least 200 times to different entrepreneurs, generally they say all their memories are great because they get the help, their clients. But is there a moment that maybe stands out for you that just solidifies why you do what you do?
Yeah, I would say definitely the client successes always are like super, rewarding, and it's like, oh, it's that you go back to your why. But I will say there was this moment when I started to actually transition from alternative medicine to really help people building businesses. When people at that moment when people started to ask me, what, like, can you help me? And that was really number one, I had transcended a lot of my own stuff that I really like up in, the intro, sort of this up and down roller coaster of entrepreneurship. And for me, that moment was defining, because number one, I felt like I was doing something good, right? Like I felt like I was successful at some level. And then number two, it was like, it directed me in like a direction that I had felt called, but not until somebody actually called me to do it that I started to evolve in that. So I would say actually one of that evolution of my ability to help people and see people for either their healing, right? Because I do a lot of healing actually in the business aspect of it that helps entrepreneurs really come into fruition in their ultimate destiny. Because I do believe that our business is a platform and almost a driver of people's destinies. So that was really a defining moment for me in my entrepreneurship, when people started to actually ask me, and I was like, oh my gosh, you get like almost that feedback from others that you're sort of on the right path. So that was really I would say defining for me.
When you were going through that transition from being a business owner to, I'm not going to say you're not a business owner now, but more of a coach for business owners, was there a moment that you had this like imposter syndrome? Because I know as entrepreneurs, we deal with imposter syndrome all the time, but you're moving from one type of entrepreneurialism into another. Was there this huge, or even bigger imposter syndrome that you faced?
Yeah, I definitely have faced imposter syndrome at every level. I would say, like, as you evolve, I feel like the evolution of entrepreneurship, we're going to face that. And we face it at, I would say, like, aspects or different levels. But I did definitely face that. And I also realized that that entrepreneur self and that integrity piece of wanting to, give good service and wanting to know that I'm expert in what I'm doing, that imposter syndrome actually helped me sort of stay in my own integrity. So I never tried to get rid of it. I always tried to move through and transmute it a little bit, being like, oh, look at this. This is actually helping me to stay in integrity where I am still feel aligned to. So I feel like the imposter syndrome, sometimes we like push it away and be like, oh, I don't want it. But it actually can really help us to stay sort of defined and unique in our own area. So I've dealt with it, and I've also learned to sort of allow it to be a guide a little bit too as well.
I like that, how you embrace the imposter syndrome instead of something that you need to get rid of. You embrace and make it part of yourself to stay true to your core values and stay true to your mission and your why. So I love that. That's because that's a little bit different than I hear from other entrepreneurs when I ask about this imposter syndrome. So I love having it. Do you feel that you look at business differently because you come from a non-traditional, like you're looking at holistic medicine first, or Eastern medicine, if you will? Do you think you look at business differently because you're coming from a place that's not based in Western ideology, if you will?
Yes, I definitely think I do. And I've been told that by people too as well. It's like I offer insight in a almost like a deeper space where I'm not looking at just, oh, your numbers and how are you making more money or how are you impacting more people, but there's also a deeper level of the inner cultivation of the entrepreneur, right? We almost like expand our capacity as we start to that inner cultivation actually helps us to sustain higher impact, right? Because somebody can start with like one person and they can make an impact, but how do you make an impact beyond that? There's a sustainability that allows an entrepreneur to go from a certain level to their next level, whatever impact it is. And I look at it that on a deeper layer of the actual CEO of the company. So that's usually in general who I focus on and who I work on, and also like what's their big vision. I can see usually beyond what they can even see a lot of times too as well. So I definitely take a different approach than a lot of, I would say, like maybe an ordinary somebody that helps businesses.
I love that. It's a nice change, because I think from interviewing as many coaches and people who do help leaders become their authentic self or move towards their authentic self, I've yet to have someone who comes from a more holistic like area or alternative medicine, if you will, who has come into this space that has that different look. And I think that's needs more. I think we need more of that diversity of thought, because that's going to bring more and cultivate better ideas and better businesses. I want to talk about the book that you recommended here. It's The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. Why do you feel entrepreneurs should be reading this book?
This book is great. And one of the reasons why it's like not really business based, right? It's not like, 10 ways of being a higher performing person. But Michael Singer is a beautiful person and a beautiful writer. I really like all his books, but this one in particular is amazing because it really helps you surrender into a deeper purpose, right? A deeper vision that's actually outside of you, right? Because usually your business actually wants to evolve in a way that makes a bigger impact. And sometimes we actually sort of can keep ourselves in a small, connected to a higher power or higher source. But Michael Singer actually beautifully writes like the evolution. He's also an entrepreneur himself, of a bigger vision and how it actually comes to fruition, and also how to really trust that process, because that's a big level of trust and risk, right? So there's like the trust, and then the risk is on the other side for entrepreneurs. And how do we cultivate that over the journey of a lifetime of entrepreneur. So it's an amazing read. And it's really about that inner purpose more than how to be better at something.
I like that. Oh, that's definitely a selling point. I'm going to pick up that, or at least put it on my bookshelf of books that I need to. And I love this podcast and specifically asking for books, because it's always get that nice. We as entrepreneurs need to continue educating ourselves in different things, not just how to be top 10 tips to be the best.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of those out, and sometimes they don't really build up anything. I want to touch in maybe a tip that you have for some of our entrepreneurs, not necessarily becoming their creating a greater impact, but dealing with the change, because you changed from doing holistic medicine and alternative medicine into the coaching. You went from a kind of a traditional business, which is medicine, to coaching or consulting. We have our entrepreneurs who are looking to go into that. What kind of tip would you have for them to transition from maybe a traditional business or a traditional employment into the world of this entrepreneurial space that we're in?
Yeah. So a few things, or one big tip I would say is like, don't give up, right? I think that we hit these points of like, I don't know if I can do it, and it's too hard, or I don't know if I'm cut out for it. That's a normal process. So really, like, don't give up on your dreams. Don't give up on that bigger vision, and everything that you can do in your journey that can actually remind you to keep going. Do that, right? Like, do that. Even if it requires you to, spontaneously take a week off, or whatever it requires for you not to give up. I think that's the biggest tip that I would give in the overall journey of an entrepreneurship. And especially if you're in new waters, right? So when we navigate new waters and we navigate new things, we have the inner resiliency. If you are an entrepreneur, you actually have the resiliency to change, right? But change always takes new things and new areas. Give yourself the grace around it that you can allow yourself not to give up, and allow yourself to actually come in mission of that next thing.
That's a great tip. Oh, I love that. And I need to remember that, to take some time to say, hey, it's okay. It's okay. Take some time. Enjoy this moment, because you're only here once.
Yes.
Where do you want to go? Where is Katie going? Like, if I snap my fingers, we're 10 years, not 5, we're 10 years in the future. What is Katie doing?
Yeah. So I'm going to write a book. That's definitely going to be in the next 10 years. I probably will write more than one. I'm also looking really to impact more people on a grander scale. And that's really more entrepreneurs. Methodologies for entrepreneurs, because it's not easy, right? And sometimes we're so caught in self-development, but we're not necessarily caught in our what do I need to heal? How do I need to allow myself to not burn out in 10 years? So really almost meshing the healing aspect and also the business aspect for a lot of entrepreneurs that really need that, right? I think everybody does, honestly, as an entrepreneur, but allowing the almost those two realms to merge together. So that's really where I see myself going.
I like that. I would like to know if you have we've already talked about memories, but is there a point in your journey that cemented your why you shifted from holistic alternative medicine, quote unquote, to helping create a bigger impact in people's lives?
Yeah, actually it was the death of my grandmother, actually, that solidified my why. And I didn't even expect it to be that, but of 2021, which is really not that long ago, my grandmother passed away, and I was very close to my grandma. My grandma was actually like a big spiritual teacher for me. She always sort of taught me to go after what I wanted. And when she passed, I had this like inclination. It was like, keep doing that, and that really solidified my personal why of what I wanted to do in my life. And that was a big turning point for me when she passed on.
Well, first of all, my condolences to the passing, but that is great. Like your grandmother solidified your why, even though it may have been a tragic period. You had that confirmation from someone you cared for that you are on the right path and moving forward. What what is the topic of entrepreneurship mean to you? Like when someone says being an entrepreneur, what does that mean to you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually, to me it means like to provide your own freedom, like to actually go after what you want in life. And also to have sort I've never really been in a 9 to 5, and I sort of was, even in college, I was like, "Oh, maybe I should just do that." And I could never put myself in that area. So for me, it really solidifies dreams, possibility, and ultimately freedom. And then on the other aspect, on a global scale, it's like the impact that you can make, the change that you can make in people's lives. No one in the world, I think, makes a bigger impact than an entrepreneur in terms of change and innovation. So we change the world ultimately in minute ways, right? And in little ways, like even the iPhone has totally revolutionized the world. Without the entrepreneurship of Steve Jobs, we wouldn't have that. So it's actually, I feel like entrepreneurs are very unique and very extraordinary ultimately. And really the journey of that is the cultivation and how much impact and change that we actually can make on the world for the better.
Oh, I like that. That is a great definition of entrepreneurialism. We are coming up to the near the end of it, Katie. I will ask the spark question. As my audience knows, spark is from Seek Discomfort. They want to make sure that you can spark conversations with strangers because they're just friends you haven't met yet. What about your life is different today than it was a year ago?
Yeah. So a year ago, I would say my kids were younger. My kids are a little bit older now, so I have a little bit more freedom from just being a mom and also an entrepreneur. I definitely have evolved. I feel like we evolve every single year. Like sometimes, especially with entrepreneurs, I feel like sometimes we don't even recognize ourselves a year ago if we're willing to sort of evolve into our next level. So I would say, impact wise, like the impact I'm making is different. My home life is somewhat different. My children are older. They're a little bit more free-willed now and can do a little bit more themselves. And really, I would also say my even like collab.
Katie, you froze there.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Sorry, you just froze there. Could you
Yes.
repeat from when your kids are a little older, you have a more freedom to do stuff?
Yes, yes. And also just my trust and faith in my overall vision has totally changed in the last year or two as well. It's gotten more defined, it's gotten more refined. And I'm always sort of evolving in that too as well.
Awesome. Katie, I'm going to jump off stage here. I'm going to let you have the floor. Let my audience know where they can connect with you, how they can work with you if they're wanted, or how they can follow you. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. So the best way to follow me, I'm actually really active on Facebook. So you can find me at Katie Edwards Corbin on Facebook. And also you can check out my website, thebeyondins.org.
Excellent. Katie, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story. I'm excited to start learning more about you now that we're connected on Facebook. I just sent you a friend request. That's what I
Great.
do when I'm off.
Thank you.
Off age.
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for coming here today and sharing your story. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Phil. I appreciate it.
To my audience, as you know, the show notes will have all the links to connect with Katie as well as follow her on all the social medias. I want to thank you all for being here today, and remember to always invest in yourself.